G'day guys, I'm AT5 here and today I'll be reviewing Destiny. So Destiny is a science fiction first-person shooter title that is developed by Bungie, which I reviewed on the PlayStation 4. And it tells the story of a post-apocalyptic future and of a mysterious object in the sky called the Traveler. This object appeared centuries ago, and since then humans have been able to spread across the solar system, colonizing planets. That is until an event known as the Collapse occurred, and humankind have been wiped out by an alien threat known as the Darkness, and they have taken over control of these planets. So now mankind only have a single city left on Earth with a damaged Traveler protecting it, and it has raised an army of Guardians, also known as the Light, to destroy the alien threat before it's too late. So you play as one of these Guardians who has been raised from the dead at the very start of the game, and you have no idea who you are, what you were before, or how you died. But Peter Dinklage saves your life at least. These little robots called Ghosts have been sent from the Traveler to raise and support the Guardians on their quest, which is all well and good, but you never learn anything about you. Your character is a blank slate basically, which leaves them with no personality, no history or anything, though this can be true of most MMO type games in which you're supposed to build your character and the journey you take is your story. Then again, I was surprised that your character in this game has a voice, but I don't know why. Your character only speaks a handful of times throughout the entire game, and it just feels odd since in some MMO games your character usually doesn't have dialogue. Although this might have something to do with the fact that this game is supposed to be like an MMO but not an MMO, or something like that, or... moving on. So I'm going to start off by saying that this game is gorgeous, my word. The first time I arrived on the moon, I was gobsmacked at how good this game looks with its impressive detail and lighting effects. I just couldn't help to take a minute to have a look at the sweet view of the landscape and just be somewhat amazed by the scenery. To complement this, the game also has an amazing orchestra soundtrack that makes everything about the game feel all the more epic. So if you don't know anything about Bungie, they are of course the developers of the Halo series, and this is severely evident in this game, as it feels exactly like Halo. This means you're going to get great gunplay mechanics to use throughout your journey, and there is never a time where I felt the controls and gunplay lacked in any way. The gunplay is actually great fun when you first start playing Destiny. So at the very start of the game, before you get into the action, you get to choose your class from either a Titan, a Hunter, or a Warlock, and they all possess different powers and attributes for you to level up and wield throughout the game. Leveling up at first felt good, and I especially loved the double jumping abilities, which add a lot more flexibility to the movement around the environment. Although it would have been nice to be able to grab ledges, as most of the time I kept missing by that much. So I decided to be a hunter, which specializes in long-distance combat, such as the use of single-shot scout rifles and sniper rifles. There are a handful of weapons at your disposal, from auto and plasma rifles to shotguns and rocket launchers, but unfortunately I found none of these weapons to feel very unique besides this plasma rifle that you have to charge and it releases the burst fire, which I thought was quite a bit of fun to use. But besides that, the rest of the weapons are nothing interesting, which was disappointing to discover, especially for a future sci-fi game. You can also collect armor for your Guardian, and this and weapons all have different stats that affect you in different ways, and this can be cool mixing different armors, but I found myself just choosing the armor with the most protectiveness, so you don't really hold on to the same armor for long. So how the game works is that you can choose a number of different locations on a map to go to, and you can of course unlock more as you progress through the story missions. The tower acts as a kind of hub where other players are wandering around, seeing different vendors and interacting with each other, although it's not like PlayStation Home where you can see everybody talking to each other or anything. There are a number of different vendors available for you to purchase weapons, armor, different ships and so on. So yeah, I've explained most of the basic features about Destiny, and with the happiest face I can. But this is where the shit hits the fan. I literally have too big a list to go in full depth about what I really hate about this game. So I'm just going to give you a small list of things I really don't like or annoy me about Destiny. Looting is rare and not very satisfying. Repetitive gameplay and mission design. No story to get involved in any way. Poor script writing, and I swear this sentence alone is one of the worst I have ever heard and just made me laugh.
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
There is really only one vehicle in the entire game. Peter Dinklage's voice work starts to grate after a while, with dull dialogue as well. Little to no character customization at the very start of the game, which makes me think, what's the point of having it there? A very limited amount of weapons. Every time you land on a planet, you spawn in the exact same spot every single time. Spaceships are nothing but cosmetic and used for loading times. Enemy encounters are repetitive and uninteresting. Boss battles are nothing but great big giant versions of normal enemies. I experienced network connection issues which took me out of the game mid-mission. Multiplayer can be a bit hit and miss since you can use your own equipment, so the matches don't feel fair, and the multiplayer combat is nothing special if you've played Halo multiplayer before. Destiny borrows too many ideas from other games and does nothing interesting with it. The most epic grinding game I have ever played. So that list is pretty much all the little to big things that really annoyed me and bothered me about Destiny. But the two main issues I have with Destiny is the looting system and the downright horrible gameplay and mission design that is just so repetitive. Now, I finished the main storyline of the game, and it was one of the most boring, lazy experiences I think I've ever had in a video game. Now, there are around 20 main missions, which does take quite a lot of hours to complete, and it is recommended that you are a certain level before you attempt the mission. Kind of like in other MMO games, where there's a recommended level you should be before you attempt a certain quest. So you would go off and find another quest or side activity to complete. But in Destiny, it just doesn't work at all. The only thing you will ever be doing in this game, in pretty much every single mode and side mission, is kill aliens. That's it. There is absolutely no creative piece of gameplay within this beautiful looking world. The mission designs are so abysmal that the game became less engaging every time I booted it up, because I found I was doing the same mission over and over again day by day. Highlighting another thing that shits me is that you spawn in the exact same location every time you start a mission, even though the map lays out a different location. This means you will see the same place over and over again, fight the same enemy spawns over and over again, because they are the same every single time, and you have to go through them to get to where you have to go. Now, I have to admit, MMOs do this all the time, where they have the same enemies spawn in the same place for you to fight them time after time. But the difference between Destiny and those games is that there is a huge variety of enemies to encounter, which keeps the game fresh. In this game, there are only 4 different alien races, and they are all too similar in so many ways and often do nothing unique to keep the encounters fresh. The only one that did feel different were the Vex, and they are the robot race in the game, and they have a unique feel to them. They are slow, but they come straight for you without hesitation, and if you blow their head off, they come sprinting at you. And also, the flying Vex are very interesting as well, as they're different. But then again, this is only a couple of foes in the entire game that feel different, as most of the Vex are just giant bullet sponges with shields to protect them. You would at least think they would come up with unique boss battles, but they don't! They use the exact same models in that species, except bigger. That's it! And don't even get me started with the final boss battle, which is exactly the same thing. This is downright embarrassing gameplay and mission design. It's as if they were like, fuck it, let's just make the boss battles bigger versions of enemies the player have already fought before, because we couldn't be fucked. That is all I could hear in my head when I was fighting these so-called boss battles. And not only are the main missions repetitive, but the side activities are exactly the same thing. You can do patrol missions that act as a kind of side mission for when you're down exploring the planet, but they are generally the same thing over and over again. Go to this location, scan this. Done. Kill this many enemies. Done. Collect loot off dead enemies. Done. I mean, seriously, where's the fun in doing this throughout the entire game? There are also strike missions where you have to work as a team to kill a huge amount of enemies and eventually fight a final bullet sponging boss with little or completely random reward. And lastly, bounty missions are pretty much little things you can do to get experience, such as kill 10 generals, or kill this many enemies without dying. But these missions don't really add anything to the game anyway, but just encourage the already repetitive gameplay. And I lost count of how many of these protect the ghost while he operates this and opens that missions. So I thought to myself, if this game was bad in any kind of way, at least the looting system of the game would be enough to keep me in it. But it wasn't. Not only is looting as rare as fuck, but the loot itself is so boring and unimaginative that I gave up even trying to loot. It is generally so hard to find because the game uses random loot drops. So besides these random loot drops, there is absolutely no reason to explore this beautiful game world because it's so empty. Dead empty. The only stuff you will find in this beautiful game world is the same enemy encounters over and over and random loot chests every now and then that might have nothing in it. Seriously, every time I found a loot chest, it never even had armor or weapons, just parts to upgrade them, which I barely did in this game because there are only limited weapon customization options. And the weapons don't feel unique enough to feel different. Sure, there's all sorts of stats and little things that says it does stuff, but you barely feel it, and that's the same with the character customization. I never felt that my character was getting any stronger or unique in any kind of way. The only useful things I unlocked was my grenade, jumping, and knife and special abilities that you unlock pretty early on. And to my surprise, I eventually unlocked a subclass at level 15, and it was practically exactly the same thing. Another grenade, another knife ability, jumping abilities, and the only thing that was different was a special ability, and it wasn't even that good. Destiny just feels like it does not try. It does not try in the least. There is no story to get lost in, there is absolutely no variety in the gameplay, loot is nowhere near as satisfying as in other games, and the list just keeps going on and on. I think the main problem is that I have played a few MMOs recently, and games such as Borderlands. Destiny feels like a game that tries to take all of these different ideas and genres and put them together in one game, but does absolutely nothing with it. Borderlands has an amazingly generous loot system, amazing and unique weapons that all may be the same gun model, but feel and act differently, and skill trees that make you want to level up and give your character amazing abilities. And this game doesn't even get the MMO part right, as they are usually filled with all sorts of different quests for you to take on, and travel to all sorts of different unique locations with massive variety of enemies and a bigger variety in missions. I mean, Destiny doesn't even have fetch quests really, just collecting and killing missions mostly, and I just don't find enjoyment in doing the same thing over and over and over and over again until my eyes start bleeding. Oh, I'm sorry for the rant, and I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. Destiny, you get a fucking 4 out of 10. This is one of the most embarrassing and downright lazy games I have played in years, and it was made worse by the fact that this is a $500 million game. One of the most expensive games ever made. What the hell did they spend this money on? Its looks and that's it? Not to mention the fact apparently the game is supposed to be supported for the next 10 years, but I definitely won't be hanging around for anything decent to come to this game. At initial release, this game is pitiful, and I don't care if there's going to be expansions in the future and more shit for us to spend our money on to make the game any better, because Destiny has left a bad taste in my mouth and is one of the worst games of the year, and I can't wait for the new Borderlands this week to show this game how it's fucking done. I apologise to my viewers for the excessive language I used in this review. I don't usually do it in my reviews, but it was just used to prove a point at how frustrated I am with this game and with all other things that I'm going to review in the future. But anyways, did you guys enjoy Destiny? Because I actually have a few friends that actually enjoy the grindiness of the game, but to me, it's just slack in every single department. And if you have any comments about the game, remember to leave me a comment down below and I'll get back to you. And if you like this review, remember to like me on Facebook and subscribe to me on YouTube if you want to see more. And thank you very much for everybody for watching my review. I'm sorry it's a very delayed review of this game. It got lost in the mail first of all, and I had to borrow it from a friend, and I had to play as much as I could in a week or so that I had it. And yeah, it's kind of good that it did get lost in the mail because I hate the game. But anyways, MA25 is bloody out of here.